services for child development, a child-centered data governance structure is indeed the need of the hour. In fact, UNICEF's 2021 publication called The Case for Better Governance of Children's Data, a manifesto, states that preventing children from engaging in the online world can curtail their freedoms, while preventing use of their data for development of services may limit opportunities. Now, let's look at a couple of challenges on our road to creating a child-centered data governance structure. First and foremost, while most research attention has been concentrated on teenagers, increasingly the very youngest of children are also becoming regular users of the internet. But the universal and often adult treatment of all users fails to respect children's evolving capacity, lumping children in overly broad categories such as under 13s, under 18s. Article 5 of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child defines childhood as the period between 0 to 18 years of age, a time when attitudes, preferences, and identity are fluid and under formation. The UN Convention on the Rights of the Child also explains the evolving capacity of the child by discussing how, as children grow and develop, they acquire enhanced competencies, need less direction, and have greater capacity to take responsibility for the decisions affecting their lives. Now, secondly, Professor Sonia Livingstone from the London School of Economics also points out in one of her research papers that children's development can be very different based on their personal circumstances. For example, a 15-year-old from a lower social economic status home might have similar knowledge and digital literacy as that of an 11-year-old from a high socioeconomic status home. Now, thirdly, the current trend of over-reliance on parents for consent is also less than effective. For example, in a low digital literacy country, imposing the burden of determining the acceptability of a platform or application's data protection and privacy policies on parents who may not normally have the knowledge or time or capacity to review terms and conditions and such policies will only disappoint. Now, fourth, still not very remarkable obligations on businesses to design activities that protect children, create privacy notices that are easily understood by children, to conduct preemptive harms assessments, and to implement risk mitigation. Again, I'm not saying that nothing is being done, but not enough is being done. And fifth, there's also an ongoing discussion on what exactly a good age verification mechanism should look like. Because, a age verification process should not in itself lead to more collection of personal data. Now, as we can easily notice in all of these examples, none of our existing policy debates around children's data actually involves children. But if we refer to Articles 3 and 12 of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, we can easily emphasize why children have the right to be heard in any processes related to their data and digital experiences and be involved in governance, decision and policy making and design of products wherever possible. Hence, it is time that we encourage children to actively participate in and contribute to data protection and online privacy policy. Multi-stakeholder, intergenerational, child-centered, child rights-based approach to data governance-related policies and regulations needs to be created now. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ananya, for the insightful answer. And since our time is a bit limited, we're going to move on to the next speaker. So my question will be directed towards Namra. So Namra, how do existing policies on child data governance vary among countries in the Asia-Pacific region?
First of all, thank you, Connie, for the great introduction. And to answer your question, I think when we look at the existing policies on child data governance in the AP region, there exist a lot of gaps. Like Ananya said, it's not that nothing has been done, but whatever is being done is, again, not enough. Asia Pacific as a region is a broad, big region with like diverse countries and different cultural values and all. And we see a set of like a patchwork of child data governance policies in the Asia Pacific region. So for some countries, There are very comprehensive laws within Asia Pacific, and the other countries have like basic regulations, and then there are some other countries that are actually moving towards, better laws and restrictions and regulations and all of that. And I'll just give you a few examples from different countries to give you a broader landscape of what's really happening and how countries differ in their regulations overall. So, for example, there's Singapore, and they have Personal Data Protection Act, which is a comprehensive child data protection law. It applies to all organizations and that collect or process data of individuals, including children. And the PDPA, this act requires organizations to obtain parental consent before collecting or processing personal data of children under the age of 13. Japan has Personal Information Protection Act, which was again amended in 2017 to specifically address the protection of children's protection data. And within this, stricter rules were introduced for obtaining parental consent when processing personal data of children under the age of 16. Organizations were mandated to secure explicit consent from a parent or guardian before collecting, using, or disclosing personal information of minors. And in addition, this act requires organizations to take reasonable steps to protect children's personal data from unauthorized access, use, or disclosure. We have an example of South Korea. They have a Network Act that governs the handling of personal information, including that of minors. And this law necessitates explicit consent, again, from a parent or a guardian for processing personal data of children under the age of 14. And in addition, this act requires organizations to provide clear and concise privacy notices to children and their parents as well. China has a great framework also. They have a cybersecurity law and personal information security specification that incorporates provisions for safeguarding children's personal data. There are platforms that are obliged to acquire parental consent before collecting and processing data of children under the age of 14. And additionally, platforms catering to minor must implement age-appropriate privacy settings. And this law also prohibits the use of children's personal data for targeted advertising. India has introduced the Personal Data Protection Bill in 2019, which proposed special provisions for children's personal data protection. And this bill sought additional safeguards when processing children's data and emphasized the importance of obtaining parental consent. It is also, the bill also proposed the creation of a Children's Data Protection Authority to kind of oversee protection of children's data. And in addition, they have the Information Technology Act, which is a general law of information technology in India that includes some provisions on child data protection. And this act kind of prohibits the publishing or transmitting of any information that is harmful to the interests of children. However, the law does not define what actually constitutes harmful information, and it is subjected to different interpretations. Again, Australia has a Privacy Act that encompasses principles that safeguards children's protection, personal information. The Office of the Australian Information Commissioner offers guidelines on handling children's data, emphasizing clear privacy notices and necessity of parental consent. And the OAIC, the Office of Australian Information Commissioner, also has a dedicated team that focuses on child privacy issues. I would like to also talk about my own country. Pakistan has Electronic Crimes Act, PICA, 2016. And this law prohibits a number of cyber crimes, including publishing or transmitting of child sexual abuse material. And the online grooming of children and the unauthorized access to or disclosure of children's personal data. And they have a bill that is currently being debated in the Pakistani parliament also, which is Personal Data Protection Bill. And this will again go on to establish a comprehensive data protection law or like a framework like we see in other countries to include provisions for the protection of children's data within it and kind of set an age limit. But like this list goes on, there are a number of other countries, and I'm pretty sure they have great laws and regulations in place. But there are certain trends that we can observe when we look into these countries and their laws and regulations. And one thing we see is that they have come up with comprehensive laws that are targeted at children. Some have actually initiated and created these laws, and the other countries have basically amended existing laws to include child data protection provisions, and some countries are in a process to do so. But the whole framework, and when you look at different countries throughout the region, it gives rise to very important questions, which were certainly highlighted by Nania also. Number one, how are we differentiating in terms of laws when it comes to children of different age groups? Is there a distinction between, let's say, younger babies to toddlers to teenagers? There is currently no distinction, basically. There's just like an age limit, and it's like a blanket cover, and underneath all the laws are applicable in the same manner. And what that does is that kind of overlooks the nuances of different age groups. And also you have to keep in mind that legal age in different countries varies differently. And different countries also have different cultural values. So that is also important to understand. It's an important question when we talk about children data law protection. Second question is, how are we actually regulating parents or guardians? Every law that I just covered talks about the consent of parent or a guardian. But is there a law that is actually making these people accountable, or is there a way that they're regulating these people or these individuals also? And I don't think so there are any sophisticated methods to look into that as of yet. I think it's very common practice nowadays that parents are uploading pictures of their babies, and these are very younger babies also, without their consent. And these kids do not understand the kind of digital footprint they are leaving, the kind of information that is being shared, obviously without their consent. They're just too young, but I don't think anybody's ready. That's a very responsibility of that. And third question is, we also observe that in the case of Asia Pacific, and I'm pretty sure in other regions also, there is not a regional overarching set of regulations or framework that is governing these countries in a more uniform way. So it's more like individual policies from country to country. And this gives space for certain, there are certain lacunas that exist and they need to be addressed. One, it's around the clarity of the definition of a child. There is, again, lack of comprehensive laws. There is lack of enforcement. These laws exist, but how far are they being enforced, and how's accountability made sure? That is a very important question, or a space to look into. There is lack of transparency about how children's data is being collected and used, and my colleagues, Pavel and Aris, maybe will dive deeper into this. There is lack of accountability for organizations that probably they have this data, and they are probably exercising in ways that are not legal, perhaps. But is there an accountability that for certain organizations or even individuals, if they have already misused, let's say before these laws were in practice? So how does that work? Again, international and regional cooperation is short on these. There is lack of child-specific regulations, very important to look into that space. And my second last point would be like taking into account the rapid evolution of technology, right? And how are we keeping up with data protection laws in general to regulate them and to keep the pace with the technological advancements? And for example, the use of facial recognition technology, artificial. So we need to think on these lines to make the future of our generation, safer and secure, cybersecurity wise. And my last point would be the cross-border data flows and the collection and use of children's data easily crosses international borders, regional borders, and all of that. And it makes it a lot difficult to kind of pinpoint how the children's data is being protected and how does jurisdiction play a role over here, because that's a very complicated issue.
Namra, I think you're frozen. We can't hear you here in the room. Connie, if you can confirm.
Yep, she's frozen on my end as well.
Okay, then
Well,
maybe we
I guess we can first move on to the next speaker. So I think Namra has already raised a lot of very insightful questions and also many different examples from other countries. So that was very nice. And now, due to time constraints, we'll move on to Pavel. So Pavel, what are the key technical challenges involved in safeguarding children's data and how can they be addressed effectively? Pavel, over to you.
Thank you, Connie. Is it all right if I can ask you to put up my slides? There's just one slide actually.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Namra, we lost you for a minute there.
Yeah. I was just wrapping up, and the last 2 points were about technological advances that we need to keep up with what's happening in the evolution of technology. And the last point is about regulating cross-border data flows. How is children data being regulated across borders, and the jurisdiction question on that. So that would be from me for now, and we can look more into the recommendations part towards the end of the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Namra. And we're currently waiting for Pavel to share his screen so that he can answer the next question.
Pavel, can you
All right.
confirm if you're sending the PPT to the Secretariat or if you're sharing the screen yourself?
I've sent the PPT to the Secretariat in the Google Drive.
Okay.
But if it's not working, I can just share my own.
I think they can make you the co-host and you can share the screen on your end.
Sure.
Oh, you're already a co-host. Pavel, you can share the screen from your end if that's okay.
Sure. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Yes, we can see it now. You can put it on presentation mode, please.
Just give me a second. Sorry, I just need to see my notes as well. But no worries. Let me just start because as Connie just asked me, there are a lot of key technical challenges in safeguarding children's data. And of course, as we delve into the realm of safeguarding children's data in the digital age, it becomes evident that we will face unique and intricate technical challenges when dealing with data concerning minors. There exists actually a profound responsibility to ensure their privacy, security, and overall well-being. And therefore, it is important to shed light on the multifaceted technical hurdles that arise when we collect, utilize, and store children's data. So additionally, as we navigate this terrain, it's crucial to explore viable strategies for effectively addressing these challenges. For example, how can consent mechanisms be tailored to suit different age groups? What role does age verification really play in ensuring that the right level of protection is applied? Moreover, in a landscape where data accuracy is paramount, what approaches can we adopt to validate and maintain the authenticity of children's data? So I have 10 points here. These are I believe, the key technical challenges in safeguarding children's data. I'm going to try and briefly go through each one of them without taking too much time. So the first one being, of course, the consent mechanisms for children. So obtaining informed consent from children is obviously very important because children might lack the cognitive development to fully understand the implications of the stuff they're sharing online or in terms of granting permission for data processing. Now, developing these age-appropriate consent mechanisms require user interfaces, languages, visual cues, and these all resonate with different age groups. And it involves creating and engaging and understanding formats that will also allow children to comprehend the consequences of their actions. A solution obviously would be to design more user-friendly and age-appropriate consent interfaces. And if you'd ask me, I would say like we can take the approach of utilizing visual cues or even simple languages, interactive elements that children find entertaining that cater to this different age groups. And we incorporate a gamification or storytelling to help children understand the concept of consent. Now, a lot of people, like before me, Namra and Ananya have talked a lot about age verification, and it's a very important topic because verifying a child's age online is essential for applying appropriate privacy protections. But of course, it's not always true, or the information regarding a child's age is obviously not always put online, or it's not put in an accurate manner because it's important to strike a balance between the accuracy and privacy. And that could be challenging. And methods such as requiring credit card details may be too invasive for minors because, nowadays children are always on their iPads or on the phones, and they like to play these games that require in-store in-store purchases. And therefore, this could be difficult because we need technical solutions involving digital age verification technologies or leveraging blockchain for secure yet private age verification. And this must be carefully designed to ensure compliance with the regulations while safeguarding children's rights. If you'd ask me, I would say we should obviously employ advanced technologies that use facial recognition or biometric indicators, but then again, that is putting too much of the children's information online. So right now, I don't have an answer to a proper approach regarding that. Number 3, regarding the data accuracy and validation. So obviously, children may provide incorrect or incomplete personal information due to the misunderstandings or lack of awareness. Ensuring data accuracy involves the validation checks, cross-referencing with trusted sources, and employing data cleansing techniques. However, these measures must be carried out without compromising a child's privacy right and without infringing upon their personal space. And therefore, I would suggest to implement validation checks during data entry to ensure accuracy. Cross-referencing data with trusted sources, such as the official records or, of course, parental information to validate the authenticity of provided data should be prioritized. Regarding the anonymization and pseudonymization, of course, protecting children's data while keeping their identities and maintaining the usefulness of data requires a sophisticated technique. Anonymization involves removing obviously personally identifiable information, and of course, pseudonymization replaces identifiable data with artificial identifiers. And implementing these methods without compromising data utility and accuracy can be quite challenging. And therefore, I would, of course, suggest that the approach we take is to use advanced algorithms to remove personally identifiable information while preserving the data utility. So we have to replace identifiable information with pseudonyms that cannot be easily linked to these children. In terms of the security of child-focused services, of course, designing a secure online platform for children involves considering their unique vulnerabilities. Technical challenges including like ensuring the robust authentication methods, encryption data at rest and in transit, and of course, implementing age-appropriate access control. And protecting children against cyber threats such as hacking, phishing, and unauthorized data access, which children probably still don't even understand properly. So it's important to use strong encryption for data at rest and in transit, and we must use authentications that children do understand and regularly update security measures to counter evolving cyber threats. Regarding the data breach and prevention, I'll try to go as fast as I can from here. We have to prevent data breaches involving children's data because it's critical. And organizations must understand this, that they have to employ robust security measures to conduct regular security audits and establish breach response plans, to understand that any kind of problems should not affect the parents or the guardians of the children, as well as the children themselves. And that's why it's important for these organizations to employ firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and of course, develop comprehensive breach response plans that include notifying affected parties like, hey, we may have compromised your data, and this is what you can do next to secure that it doesn't happen again, or how can we minimize the damage. Next, going onward to data minimization, collecting the minimum necessary data while ensuring the service functionality requires careful planning. So the technical solutions would obviously involve designing systems that only request the essential data and avoiding over collection. We don't need too much data just for the sake of having it, and creating mechanisms that anonymize these children's data and delete it once it's no longer needed. And we need to find that balance between the functionality and the data minimizations, and that usually requires a very thoughtful approach. So I would say just collect the data that is necessary and nothing that's no longer required. Number 8, the user authentication. So ensuring that children are the ones that are accessing their data necessitates stronger user authentication methods. And this could be robust, but they could prevent unauthorized access. So implementing authentication processes that are appropriate for different age groups and comprehension levels is a technical challenge. I believe what we can do is we can combine factors like passwords, biometrics, and knowledge-based questions, and offer, a more adaptive authentication based on age groups, because as Namra mentioned, we don't really know the different age groups except beyond whether they are legal to be on a website or not, usually mostly above the age of 13. So we need to adapt authentication based on age groups to match the children's cognitive abilities as well. Finally, the last 2, so parental control and consent management. Of course, we have to provide parents and guardians with control over their children's data, because this requires implementing technical solutions, and of course, parents would, once parents understand what data they're putting out, they can also easily consent for their children's data across various platforms. And these challenges involve unified systems that allow parents to sort of review and modify their children's data whenever they want, and sharing preferences across different online services. Finally, to wrap up, the technological adaptation. So, of course, as we move forward in a world where technology is constantly evolving, presenting ongoing challenges as well, and therefore we have to keep up with these challenges while maintaining the integrity and safety of children's data, and that continuously requires learning and adapting and investing to up-to-date security measures and best practices. And therefore, we need to stay informed and embrace this continuous learning and understand that protecting children's data is not an easy task. Addressing these challenges, of course, necessitates a multidisciplinary approach, and not just using technology, but using legal expertise, ethical considerations, of course, collaboration among multi-stakeholders, and a commitment to prioritizing the best interests of children in the digital realm. Back to you, Connie.
Thank you very much, Pavel, for the detailed explanations on the key technical challenges. And now over to Aris. Aris, you can start to share your screen. And within the Asia-Pacific region, what educational initiatives and awareness campaigns are needed to empower children, parents, and educators in understanding the importance of data protection, in adopting responsible online behaviors, and also how can governance and technology companies contribute to these efforts?
Thank you so much for that, Connie. This is Aris for the record. Before I start answering your question, because that's a really very important question that we need to address. Before I go into that and answering your question, I would just like to make a shout out to all of our local hubs in Baguio City and in Quezon City here in the Philippines. Hello. In answering the question that was given, actually fostering awareness and education around data protection is really very, very critical to empower children, parents, and educators in adopting very responsible online behaviors. Actually, there are a lot of initiatives that we need to take into consideration, and there are a lot of strategies in which we can implement. First and foremost, we could have, a comprehensive curriculum integration. Governments should, as much as possible, collaborate with a lot of educational institutions out there who are the ones who are in, the first hand in which this specific information should be delivered. And the data protection and online safety topics should be integrated into the curricula. And this should also involve creating an age-appropriate content that teaches children about the risks associated with sharing personal information online and the importance of privacy, which leads us to creating a very robust and hopefully a good tracking of the digital literacy of students moving forward. And maybe, starting it with little children as early as maybe 5 or 6 years old. And as we all know, right now, the youth have been using technology as early as 2 years old. And I had a good experience with that with regards to my nephew. My nephew was able to use and browse the internet and watch movies and even videos on YouTube with ease without him being taught on how to use it. Number two, it's really very important. I've been saying about this particular instance since I spoke about this previously in Ethiopia. But there should be a parental guidance program. And, educational campaigns targeting parents are really, really essential because these initiatives can provide information on how to educate their children about online safety, set parental controls, and recognize signs of potential exploitation. You know what? It's really very, very important because even the parents are the ones who really, giving the information out there of their children. Yeah, I don't know if you have heard of the term sharenting, in which you are sharing very vital information of your children, even pictures for that matter. It's really very scary. There's a viral video that has been going around in which the pictures of a particular child was being collected, and it was it was created as an AI model in which what he should be looking at and how it actually looks like maybe 20 years from now, and it was shown in a movie theater and stuff like that. There's a viral video for that. And imagine if people can collect those pictures and create something like a different personality or a different person. How would that be moving forward? Next instance would be teacher training, because equipping educators with the knowledge and tools to teach online safety effectively is really vital. It's not only that they can teach online safety, but they need to teach online safety very, very effectively, because at the end of the day, it's the teachers that is being, the teachers are the ones who's teaching it, and the students are the ones who's listening to the teachers, because they know that the teachers can give them the information that they need to learn and to know how to go around with this. So workshop and training programs can enable teachers to instill responsible online behavior in students and address their particular concerns. Next, maybe an integration of interactive workshops and webinars. So interactive sessions that engage, children, parents, and educators through maybe, practical exercises, simulations, and even conducting some real life scenarios can effectively demonstrate the consequences of data misuse and even exploitation. Another thing would be digital literacy campaigns. This is not only true with schools and with parents, but also with everyone as well. Collaborative campaigns by governments and technology companies that promote digital literacy, various foundational digital literacy, teaching individuals on how to navigate online platforms responsibly, identify misinformation, and even protect their own personal data. Also, right now, if we're talking about the Asia-Pacific region, there should be, as much as possible, multilingual resources because we are a very diverse region, as we all know. And there are really different languages around the region, and creating educational materials in multiple languages would ensure wider reach and better comprehension to all of the people who are listening. I heard that Pavel was mentioning earlier about gamification. And gamified learning is really, really very important because developing these technology companies, they will be developing educational games and applications that teach data protection concepts in an engaging manner can appeal to children and help them maybe retain some essential information regarding what they are going into. And my last point would be maybe awareness through social media and social channels. Governments, technology companies, NGOs, or even educational institutions can partner and run targeted media campaigns, leveraging social media, maybe even going towards tri-media, television, radio, to even reach the broader audience. So I hope that answers the question. So back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Aris. And so now we'll move on to the Q&A session. And due to time constraints, we will be taking only 1 to 2 questions. So over to you, Shraddha. Are there any questions on site?
Thanks, Connie. It was a wonderful session. Now we have opened the floor for questions. So if there's any question that you want to ask, I would be happy to convey it. Also, there's one comment in the meanwhile that I wanted to make. Something when Pavel was talking, I realized. So yesterday during one of the sessions, Mr. Shabir mentioned about how inclusion of people, nothing about us without us. And something when Pavel was talking about not including children, and Ananya was also mentioning it, I think that was a factor that can be included. And that sentence was very powerful when he told about it yesterday. So I think it resonated with me and I was reminded about it. Maristella, you have a question? Yes.
Hi everyone, Maristella for the record. So I would just like to ask that we've been talking about not having like a regional legislation or guidance for children's data protection in the Asia-Pacific region. So would you think that's possible to have something like maybe like a GDPR but focused on children's privacy in the region? Or should it be localized? So what do you recommend or what do you think would be best for us to have? And that's it. Thank you.
That's a wonderful question. Maristella, would you like to direct that question to a particular speaker or is it to the entire panel? Okay, it's directed to the entire panel, Connie. You can take it away.
Thank you, Shraddha.
Okay, if I might join in. Thank you, Connie. I just want to chime in that I have a rather pessimistic answer for you, unfortunately. And I'm sure Namra will have better answers because she was focusing on the policies of the region. And as you might have noted, the Asia Pacific region is really vast and very, very diverse. So, unlike EU, it will be slightly difficult for us to develop a regional policy for now. And since we also have other geographical, political constraints at the moment in the Asia Pacific region, that is a solution which might occur in the distant future, but not happening in the near future, at least in my opinion. But yes, we can have localized policies, and I would personally vouch for localized policies because, like I mentioned, it's better to actually have a tailored policy which caters to the different and very specific needs of the population in a country. For example, there are countries which have many different indigenous populations living in within the territories. There are others which have many urban areas, others which have many rural areas, populations which are not primarily English speaking. Or you also have a country like India where there are people who speak too many different languages. So it's better if we let countries actually make policies, and we might actually have a nudge for those countries with a regional guiding document which can guide all these discussions over time. But I would love to see a regional approach in the distant future. I just don't see it right now. But if anybody else would like to chime in.
I'd like to add something.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. So you asked whether we should have a regional cooperation mechanism or not, and I am a strong proponent of that. We should. Whether we can have it right now or not, it's a debate maybe we can have later. But I guess these conversations kind of set a very good starting point. And by having a regional framework is important to regulate a lot of, let's say, if not specific, then broader issues, and also the question of jurisdiction. And it also kind of binds everybody in like a collective action and brings a focus to this very important issue that is common to all these countries, whether how diverse they are. And about localized efforts, I guess they're already there, and they are improving, and that's a great thing. And hopefully they will be improved much more. And these regional frameworks, let's say for Asia Pacific, can complement these local policies. And these countries maybe can sit together and learn from each other also. So that would be my take on this.
Is there any other speaker who would like to add? Because we have one more question. Sorry.
Yep. Sorry. I just want to add something.
Yes.
We're talking about the regional framework here, but as we all know, as Ananya mentioned, there are different policies or different types of things that we need to consider. But there's one thing that I think that can be put into a regional framework, which is in terms of the awareness and education of students or the youth. Because in any country that you go into, it's the same problem altogether. So making them aware of such things on how to protect their own data and how to maybe look into some of the things that they need to reply to, on what to do with if there would be any instance of, example of phishing or something. I think that can be a good regulatory framework.
Yes.
Putting it into perspective, the awareness of putting education.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Aris. Maristella's question invoked a lot of contradictory and very different responses at a very range of by all the speakers. But one thing that I think Ananya said resonated with what the APrIGF was also trying to do over the course of the last few days here, was highlight how the problems and the situations and the concerns of different countries in the same region are so diverse that we need to look at localized solutions while having a broader framework or broader principle that is regional. So I think Namra and Ananya along with Aris highlighted how that can come together in the most beautiful and collaborative manner. So we have one more question in the room, and yes, please.
Thank you. Maybe this, I'm not sure, adds to your last comments. So yes, regionally, I also believe we need different responses, within our own locations, but regionally, some kind of standardization. Having worked in the high conflict separated parenting of the family court systems in Australia, there is a lot of subjectivity on what is the best interest of the child. And I'm wondering if there has been research or agreement within this use of what the term best interest, or what some of the categories of best interest of the child are.
I think that question's directed to Ananya.
I would love to take it, but I was just wondering, I've been talking too much. I would just add
very valuable.
Comment. Yeah. Just one comment. I think that is again subjective, because different countries, different approaches, even different parenting. Because, for example, my parents have a more liberal approach towards what my best interests are, but then I have had friends whose parents had a more traditional approach towards what their child's best interests are. So I think it's difficult to define best interests like that. And then if you even go beyond personal relations, you will have cultural norms. For example, the best interests which are lined up for a girl child is very different for that of a boy child. So there are gender norms. Then if you go to different countries, you will have country specific norms, that some things which are considered to be in the best interest of a female child in that country will not be in the best interest of a female child in a different country. So I think, again, that's very subjective. I'm sorry, I don't have a very good answer for that. But yeah, that should actually invoke a deeper and much broader conversation on what exactly best interests of a child look like. But I would be very happy to hear from any of the other co-panelists on this.
If the other panelists have nothing to add, due to time constraints, I think we'll have to close the session now. So thank you all so much for participating in this workshop, and a huge thank you to all the speakers for your insightful inputs. So we're happy to say that today's workshop has been completed successfully. And now we have some exciting news regarding the IGF in Japan this October, and we would love to see you there. And I'll pass the time to Ananya to introduce this. Ananya?
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, Connie, can we go to the slides? So you must have heard that this year IGF...
Ananya, 1 second. The slides are not on the screen yet. Give me 1 second. It's the first presentation. Yes, this one. Yeah, the slides are on now. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So this year's IGF was extremely competitive. 800 session proposals were received. We are very happy to inform you that 4 of our proposals have actually made it to IGF's final schedule. As you can see on the screen right now, we do have a session on digital health literacy, which is happening on the 10th of October at 13 hours. Connie, can we move to the next slide, please? We have another session on the same day, which is 10th of October, and it is actually called Lights, Camera, Deception, Sides of Deep Fake and Generative AI. This session is at 17:30 hours. On 11th of October, we have a session called Data Protection for Next Generation, Putting Children First at 11 Japanese Standard Time. So it's actually a more internationalized version of this workshop that you just attended. So if you love this workshop, we would love to see you there as well. And finally, we do have another workshop called Decolonize Digital Rights for a Globally Inclusive Future, which is happening at 17:30 Japanese Standard Time on the 11th of October. For more information, please scan the QR code. It will take you to a website where you can find all of our flyers, more information about these workshops. You can go to our session proposals and also find out who the speakers will be. So we are looking forward to welcoming you virtually or in person at IGF 2023. Thank you very much again for attending today's session. Over to you, Connie.
Thank you very much, Ananya. And I'm happy to say that today's session is ending. So thank you very much for attending.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This is the close of the session. If you have any questions or if you want to continue the conversation further, I can personally vouch for each and every one of the panelists and the moderator. They're available online, on email, on WhatsApp. However you want to contact them, they'll be more than happy to engage the conversation further. So please don't let such an important issue just end here with this one workshop. Let's take this further and let's talk about the rights of children. Thank you.
Recording stopped.